So I suppose what I wanted to kick off with was you two as a band. You seem like such true performers. I was wondering how you're coping during obviously COVID-19. Like it seems like it's such an integral part of the band for you guys.
When you were starting that sentence, I thought you were saying you too, like the band. It's like, they're having a hard time, aren't they?
Sure.
Had to cancel their world tours. Well, like, yeah, mad. Obviously, it's pretty mad, obviously, for everyone, and I kind of find that quite beautiful. Like nobody has escaped this. This time is just weird and strange for everyone, and it's in that sense I've just chosen to embrace it and kind of go, okay, look, I'm not the only one in this boat. It's actually been very, very good for, like, weirdly, it's been good for my mental health, for example, like just knowing that everyone's in the same boat, not comparing myself negatively to people, going, oh, they're doing this and they're doing that. It's just kind of finally made me go, no, hang on, everyone's doing the same stuff. So yeah, like, as you know, myself and my brother in the band together, and for us, our experience of it was that at the end of February we got a number one album in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 weeks later lockdown happened, so we were just in the midst of promoting, and we were just on a bus, on a high. We were like, we got a number one, let's take it around the world. We were about to go embark on a tour, like in Europe and in the UK and stuff like that, and then obviously that all got pulled. And in the meantime, I mean, I was in Berlin actually when the lockdown started happening, and instead of going back to Ireland, I just decided to stay here, to be honest. And so yeah, it's been bizarre.
Yeah, no, I love Berlin. So you're still there at the moment, are you?
I am indeed.
Savage. I was going to lead on to, actually, do you remember playing your last gig before even any of the lockdowns happened?
Yeah, I think the last gig we played was in Galway. It could have been, yeah, I think it was in Galway, in the Roisin Dove. We did a last minute. We called Guggy, the promoter down in Galway, who runs a lot of the shows. We called him up like with a week's notice or less. Like, we were like, we're in for a chance. We're getting a number one, Guggy. Can you let us put on a show in Galway so we can try and sell a few more units? And he did, very last minute. So we had a sold out gig in Roisin Dove. I think that was the last one we had, and it was like on the 28th or something, 29th of February, something like that. But it might have been the next day. Then we had a gig in Swords. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's all a bit of a blur.
No, like I saw a tweet there the other day that was like, this year feels like March, April, May, June. Like it's just flown by since like March. It's hard to kind of think back to what it was almost like beforehand. But yeah, I suppose, because I was watching obviously in the research for this interview and everything, a couple of your previous ones, and I didn't hear too many people asking you guys about maybe like earlier on when you both decided to maybe start pursuing music. Did you and your brother were you kind of learning together and always played together and had a chemistry, or did you kind of reconnect later, or how exactly did it actually come about, the idea of not even pursuing solo careers as such?
Yeah, it's interesting. I from a young age sort of did music. Did piano lessons, guitar lessons, all that kind of stuff. I didn't like it. Didn't like doing the lessons. And Alfie, in the meantime, this is sort of age in the early, like 5, 6, 7 8 years old. Alfie was off doing his own thing. He was really into dancing, so he actually was in Irish dancing, of all things.
Right.
So he was really good at it. And so we kind of hung out a little bit as kids, but I think it wasn't until we were in our teenage years I had learned a few songs. You know a few covers. A few Oasis and that. You just know a few bits, and like we were basically, honestly, the story goes like we're on a family holiday in Italy, and I brought my guitar along, and essentially we just went out on the beach to play tunes to people, to get attention. To for fun, but to get attention.
Yeah,
it was a bit of a coming of age holiday, and that's kind of where the birthplace of it was. Like before that, we'd done the odd little thing, you know, at a family gathering, like, go on, get up and do that song, or you know, to give us one, you know, like you do at a family party or something. But really, no, it just, that holiday was like really the birthplace of it, because as well, it was in Italy, and we met these German tourist people who were on holiday, and this was 2008, and they were like, "Have you heard of YouTube? You know, can you put some of these songs on YouTube?" And we were like, "What the hell is YouTube?"
Yeah.
2008 was like really early days of YouTube, you know.
For sure.
So we just started putting up covers then, and that was the birth of it. We didn't ever think we were going to turn it into a band. We were just Harry and Alfie putting up songs, doing some covers, writing some. You know, it took a couple of years before we were confident enough to put our own music up there. But we fell very accidentally into this, and then, you know, eventually we took up things like busking, which built our confidence, got us used to playing in front of audiences, so that, you know, it can be quite lucrative if you take it fairly seriously. You can get a bit of cash, good pocket money during the recessionary times that it was. And yeah, I suppose eventually how we ended up doing it more seriously is like, we just got all these emails one particular week. Someone must have tipped someone off that we had, you know, look at these lads, these young lads writing their songs. So we just got a load of emails from like managers, agents, record labels, or whatever, all in 1 week. Never ever heard of any of those things beforehand. It was that we were like 18, 17. It was like, okay, cool. You want to see us play? Cool. You can come and watch us on the street.
Yeah.
You know, you can. We have a gig. Actually, do you know what happened? We had a gig. We had managers come over, like, who wanted to. They were like really interested in managing them. So we organized a gig for when they came over. And my brother was underage at the time. For whatever reason, he was organizing the gig. Maybe we were both underage. I can't remember, but he ended up being the promoter for the gig. He booked out the gig and everything. And on the day of the gig, he managed to convince the guy that he was older. Like, Alfie's an old soul. He looks older anyway. Like, he was probably 17. And the promoter on the day said, like, sorry lads, we're going to have to shut it down. There's too many young people coming along. There's too many like under 18s rocking up. Like, this, we can't have this. And my brother's like, yeah, I know. Like, it's okay. It's terrible. But the managers had already flown out and everything. Like, and this was it was in December. And the most bizarre thing happened. We ended up in we brought them to Temple Bar, and it was snowing. And we busked on the street in the snow.
Yeah.
That's it. And then it was like, cool. Yeah, we'll work with you. And that was the start of the journey. That was like 2010 or 11 or something.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Jesus. Like, it's funny how, like, probably, like, just thinking back on that stuff, it all seems so absurd. Like, even, I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes when we were putting on events and stuff, and me for the first time, you're kind of feeling like you're faking it till you make it and everything, you know, that kind of way, like, kind of leaving things out, kind of, you know, just so you can get things done and all that sort of stuff. So I suppose what I was going to ask as well about, like, early on, what was the music scene like in Ireland around that time? Because obviously you're very much like, going by that story, very much like do it yourself, and up to, you know, up until you get the help and stuff. But what was it like, kind of those early EPs and that kind of time?
It was a weird time. It was a weird time in the music industry, but it was just, in Ireland especially. Like, it was, there's no two ways about it. I mean, it was a pretty depressing time. Like, it was height of recession. You know, I mean, now this seems like a completely different thing. I mean, not you know, it's strange and uncertain and kind of scary and whatever, and it's a completely different thing. And maybe that's just the age I'm at now, you know. But I feel like in 2010 and 9 or 10 or 11, like, everyone was leaving the country. It was quite depressing. Musicians were leaving the country. That's what like prompted us to move, get over to London. It was like, there's nothing for us here. We've done the busking scene. You know, we've played a few gigs. It's like, let's get to London. That's what we did at the time. Yeah. It was also a weird time because it was like Spotify was only starting up, like streaming services were starting to, you know, the thing that was for us at the time was like, oh, you're in the iTunes charts, you know, the iTunes singer-songwriter charts, you know. And you know, these were the things we were pushing for. We were pushing for this many subscribers on YouTube. Come on, like, help us get this many subscribers on YouTube. Like, whatever it was a very different landscape. It
for
was a
sure.
lot less going on in a way. Like the whole internet was less saturated with
You
a
didn't have
lot. Like,
Instagram, like that would have came later as well. All that stuff really changed a lot. Yeah.
hmm, you're talking 10 years ago. It's amazing how much has changed. But like, it gave us a good footing anyway to have started on social media early on, and
Mm.
then get out of Ireland at the time. Now, over the next few years, Ireland became a really, high, like there's a high level of creativity that came out of it, and I think that's what happens in recessions. People have more time, and they're just like, yeah,
Mm.
just write music. And so loads of cool bands came out of Ireland over the last 10 years, to the point that now in 2020, we've got some seriously cool new bands, not just like the oldies, not just the golden oldies. Like, I would have been looking up to, like, even in 2010, remember, like we'd be looking up to like Glenn Hansard or Damien Rice and things like that. But like, even those boys are like in their like late 40s, 50s now. Do you know what I mean? So it's like things have moved on. It's 2020, Harry. Like,
Yeah. No. That.
um, there's a lot of music out there. There's a lot of great music, and a lot of it, Ireland is producing some high quality stuff in a cross genre, like loads of different fucking cool stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, for sure. No, just thought, yeah, like definitely would have been like a totally different scene back then. I suppose just to kind of circle back to the busking element, just as like a performer, I like, because I'd be very much like on the outside looking in. I don't play music or anything, but it seems to me like it would be fundamentally different to an audience that sort of expects there to be a performance. What was it like on the streets of Dublin in particular, because obviously you have such a mix of characters and stuff. I'm sure there's some mad stories over the
Yeah, we have as we say, we honed our craft. Like,
years.
this is it's in our bio. Like, somebody wrote that and was like, yeah, cool, that's what happened. We were
Yeah,
on the streets and we learned how to play.
yeah,
It's not as simple as that, obviously, but it's like you learn how to perform. Dublin was a great place because it's got such a high level of tourism, or it did,
yeah, yeah,
and especially on Grafton Street. And so we got fans from all over the world, basically from playing on the street and having a sign saying, come and follow us on YouTube. And, you know, doing that in 2010 was a very strange thing to do. Now it's the most normal thing ever.
for sure.
In terms of directing people to social media. Like, I remember having like a little QR code on my sign, but like, in 2010, being like, hey, come look at us online. Dublin in general at the time as well, like, it was a very different busking scene. Like, now they brought regulations in, and it was a bit more like wild cowboy vibes back then. And that changed over the time that we were in London. And when we came back, like one particular time we came back, it's like, oh, you need a permit to busk here now.
Yeah,
There's like a whole loads of different things, but we had some crazy experiences. We'd play for hours and hours and hours, made loads of money,
mm.
just loads of money, and all we did was just spend on food and drinks.
Yeah, yeah.
Simpler times, I suppose. Living at home, you didn't have rent to pay, so it was like that's all we did. Just
Exactly, yeah.
saved up money to buy new equipment and new toys, and made a load of friends. You have the odd, weird and dark moments where you'd be playing on a cold winter night and it's pissing rain, and it's just drunk people like telling you to play Wonderwall, and like, there's like some poor decrepit junkie fella coming up to you, and like, people steal your money. Like, there is some horror stories, there's some crazy shit that happens, but overall, man, the experience was just so beautiful. And our kind of ethos about the whole thing was like, if we're enjoying it, people will enjoy it. So we'd give up if we weren't feeling it. We're being halfway. We'd be like, we'd plan to go out for 2 hours. We might get a half an hour in and go, not really feeling it today. Instead of just like standing there and slogging and pretending like we're having fun, we wanted to really have fun whenever we were doing it. And yeah, it was a prime place to do it. Dublin has been over the years just very good for busking.
Yeah.
And in terms of it, like, relating to playing then live shows, what it's actually really similar to is being a support artist. If you're a support artist, like an opening act for a big headliner thing or whatever, nobody knows who you are.
It's the same.
Maybe a few people do. It's like that. You're there to just entertain people, but on the street, you're not even there to entertain them. They're just walking by.
Yeah.
If you get their attention, you get their attention. So we used to do mad shit, like acrobatic stuff. I used to jump up on top of bins and bollards, and just absolutely mad. I don't think I could do it anymore. I'd probably break a limb, but somehow I managed not to be holding a guitar like literally like this, not using any hands, and jumping onto a bin. Sort of a crossover of circus actory, circusry and music.
Yeah, no, for sure. And even I suppose like that whole time period, then like so after the EPs are out and like you're touring and supporting those acts and stuff a little bit later on, can you recall like any particular like signifier of like, oh, this is really working, and maybe like by the time that time once you're putting out EPs and stuff, you're already like have a level of confidence in the sound and everything like that, I suppose. But
I
yeah.
think it was probably the same time. Yeah, like it started as, oh, some people are interested in what we're doing. We better wise up and understand what the hell a manager is in music. What's that even mean? What's an A&R person? What is that? What do they do? What's a agent? Like most people, like your everyday person just has no idea what those things are. Like we are just everyday people. We did not have any interest in having a career in music. So we, that was probably a huge moment. It was like, oh, you could make this a career. Oh, we were just doing it for the crack. Like we got a bit of pocket money from it, and it's fun, and we like playing music. But a career? No way. No one in school ever tells you that you can do music as a career. It's like, no way. I remember saying it to my leaving cert, like career guidance guy, like, yeah, I'm thinking of doing music. He was like, Harry, it's a very low percentage chance that you'll have any success there, and maybe you should do computer science. And I was like, yeah, okay, actually, yeah. Like if you do computer science, you can develop apps, like, and the apps can be, they could be music related, and you could make, I know you love music, but like you could make music related apps.
Yeah.
You'd make a lot of money from that. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm sold. Now, in fairness, that teacher went on to, like a few years later, I came back to visit the school, and he was like, "I'm sorry, I thought, you guys are doing okay, actually. So I'm sorry for giving you that." But I did actually go and do computer science for a year, thinking like I need to do a job that it's going to make me some money. But man, no, I wouldn't change the journey for anything. Like it's been wonderful. That's not to say it hasn't had its hard times, but like I wouldn't change it, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no doubt. And sometimes even like like when you do a course like that or something, it's even kind of figuring out like, no, I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? Now,
Yeah.
Courses it almost, I suppose. I mean, it's not even often I suppose I get to ask an artist about their sophomore album. I wanted to maybe just touch on like what the challenges were following up a debut project, because I often hear like sometimes people will say like, you almost have like your whole life for the debut, and then the follow up is almost like, oh, you have to do everything in like a year or two. What was the like the turnaround on that kind of like?
Ours is, I mean, every story is unique and different, but like what happened with us is we had signed to a major label in the UK under the Universal Music Group, and we had, like you said, you have your whole stuff since you written since you were 14, whatever, if any of it was good, and all of that included into the final product of the first album. And our first album was like a game of like, how much more can we put on this, because we need to make it be exclusive for this person, that person, this person. Early days of like trying to appease all the different platforms, being like, oh well, we need some Spotify exclusives, we need some Apple things, this or that. So in the end you end up with this huge monster of music that like half of it we were happy with and half of it was like really like last minute, thrown together basically to appease the what the people wanted us, the people in the record label wanted us to just put more music out. And I was like, okay, we'll put it out. So by the time we released our first album, we had released 3 EPs, and then we released an album of 21 songs. So we had more than 30 songs, or nearly 40 songs. We had nearly 40 songs out at the point of releasing our first album. That was very fatiguing. Didn't realize it at the time, but it took a lot out of us creatively to say, here, have all of this, and left nothing in the tanks for a few years. Then we were actually thinking of just hanging up the towel, to be honest. And we did one gig, and we got kind of some sort of excitement, built up again, and essentially it ended up us working in a new record deal with Rubyworks in Ireland.
Mm.
and we felt reinvigorated, and so started another journey with them of a similar but very different and much healthier and much happier experience for us in terms of our maturity, not being so easily led by people, and just making our decisions much more like from our place and for what we wanted. And so we did a couple of EPs with Ruby Works and then released the album, and we're really happy with the album, how it came out. Um, the choice of producer, everything. It was a completely different experience. The first album is like a mixed bag of like this person and that person, and so, but the majority of it's done with one person, but there's loads of like, oh no, we'll get this guy to mix this and we'll get this guy, and that's kind of common, but for us at the time it was very daunting.
Kind of
And even some songs that I recorded at home with before I knew anything about recording
yeah.
are on that album, and they're like the shoddiest recordings like ever heard,
Yeah.
and that's grand. That's the process you have to go through. But like the new one that we released, Loving Everywhere I Go, I love it. I'm so happy with it. I'm so proud of it. It was like a real labor of love. Like enjoyed the whole process. Again, I would have had it out sooner, but there's always a plan, has to be built up in the right way and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, man, I'm delighted,
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and it's interesting to hear you like talk about it so candidly, like some of the mistakes and everything along the way. Do you have a favorite track yourself off the new record?
Yeah, flip and flops a little bit, but the one that's the current single is Where Did It All Go Wrong, and I really like that one. I really enjoyed the process of writing that song, and just where it went to production wise came a bit more like dark pop, and
Yeah,
I like the sound of it, and it's kind of enjoyed writing the guitar parts and writing the song, and it's probably my favorite one. But I also like there's one at the very end which is called I Will Be There For You, and it's a song that's like Alfie wrote the song, but it's about our younger sister,
mm,
and well, it's just about anyone really saying like I'll be there for you. But
mm.
we got to sing it with my sister, so the 3-part harmonies and stuff, and yeah, it's one of my favorite things to
Yeah,
do really. That's something I miss so much, is singing in harmony with my brother,
yeah,
but even better with my sister as well.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is literally my favorite thing, and I haven't got to do it for such
yeah,
a long time,
yeah.
longest period of time in my entire life.
I
I have
suppose
not.
maybe like when it first happened, you might have been like, oh, maybe a break is okay, but like as the months drag on now, it's a bit like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to get back to it, I suppose. Um,
Yeah, big time.
I,
Big
I was
time.
going to ask, just because the live album, like going back to maybe like the opening question, I was saying like you guys seem like such kind of like just true performers almost. Um, that live album was it intentional that you did it at the Olympia? Like I was kind of curious, were you kind of always looking to like leave your mark on that venue, or had you seen gigs there before when you were growing up or anything, or was it just kind of a how would you say, just so happened that it was there?
We never intended for that to be used, to be
Mm,
honest.
mm,
We recorded it knowing that we were using some of the footage for some videos.
yeah, yeah,
That was it. And then we were like, oh, actually, these sound good. It's a good thing that we record most shows. Nowadays, it's very easy to do that, multi-track record them, so you can mix them and make them, sound pretty decent. And so, in terms of the relationship with that venue, like that's one that I can't even remember the first gig I ever saw there, but I always just thought it's a really beautiful building. And,
oh yeah,
I think we played our first ever support show that we ever did was to Brezzy
mm, mm.
in like 2011 or 12 or something like that. And we were the support act in the Olympia, and it was like, whoa, it was a
Yeah,
big moment.
for sure.
Um, I mean, I don't remember it all that well, apart from the video footage that exists that kind of reminds me. But in terms of the feeling, it was like, whoa, we've made it. We've made it. You have moments like that. I've had so many moments like that where you've hit your goal, and I'm so grateful. I'm so lucky for that. I've hit my goals time and time again, and I have to remind myself of that. Over my life and over my period, I've had some aspirations and I've met them, and that's a fucking privilege. I'm super super grateful to have gotten to play, pretty much every venue in Ireland,
Mm.
um, in some form or another. Not necessarily as a headline thing, certainly not as a headline thing, but I've played, everywhere except Crow Park. Basically, it's like beautiful venues, small to big, lovely
Yeah.
experience, to get the humbling experience of playing to 30 people right the way up to playing to 30,000 people. You know, like that's what it's about for me. The journey really, and just trying to remain humble and grateful for that, because, dude, not everyone gets to do that. You know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, it's like like I can only imagine, like even like the performance supporting like the Rolling Stones and stuff like that. I'd say there's just like you're kind of pinching yourself where you're like, this is just surreal. Like, do you know what I mean? Maybe that like imposter syndrome kind of starts kicking in. Like oh god, like do they know who we are? Like,
Sure. I
there's
mean,
something.
I was definitely, yeah, a little bit of imposter syndrome, but also a little bit of cockiness.
Yeah,
Cockiness was there, so that I was like, yeah, of course I'm here. What are you talking about? I'm fucking class, you know.
yeah,
I mean, that's dropped away a little bit now, you know. I don't know, it's just young age naivety. You're just. I thought I was the center of the universe. It's actually very freeing to see that I'm not.
yeah, yeah.
It's massively freeing to not believe that you're the center of the universe. In fact, I much prefer to see that I'm a tiny little speck, not in a like self-deprecating way, but just in a like, I'm just a speck, and so
Yeah,
is that good other guy, like in this mad cosmos. You know, that is way better feeling than like, yeah, it's all about me.
exactly. Yeah. I had a train of thought after that, and I've lost it. Um, Something about. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, like, I suppose at a certain point though, that naivety hopefully would be replaced with like, okay, we put the work in though, and like you
Mm.
make your spot at a certain point too.
Yeah, there's a nice fine balance between we've earned this and we're damn grateful for being here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's a fine balance, because if you tip into too much of like we earned this, it's like you're turning into an egomaniac.
Yeah, yeah, like
You need to calm down, mate.
yeah. Kanye West, like Beyonce had the greatest video of all time, like just
Yeah, 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 yeah.
crazy stuff. I wanted to ask just as well about, because over the lockdown, I suppose you're in Berlin, so it might not be the same for you, but I've been just, I suppose it's the typical thing of like when you're told you can't do something, you really want to do it. Like I've been obsessed with travel, so I've convinced myself that when lockdown is over, I'm gonna like do something. Graduating college this year as well, so when I finish, hopefully can buzz about. Fingers crossed. But I wanted to ask, maybe just as someone who's traveled like to the States, all across Europe, anywhere that kind of surprised you, or that was a favorite spot of yours, or um, I know probably the
Hmm.
touring environment might be a little bit different to, but all the same.
I never knew anything really about Denmark,
Yeah,
but I love it there. I love the people. It's beautiful. Just one of those functioning societies, and you know, it's given as a rare example in the world of this is how things are done. I mean, they have their problems still, but I really enjoy that. Like Copenhagen is a beautiful city.
mm,
Damn expensive, like, but it works. I suppose if you lived there and you were living on the wages that they're living on, then you'd find it fine to live there. It's expensive to go there on an average Irish wage, or even though Ireland is crazy expensive too.
yeah,
So yeah,
true.
Denmark is one, and then like yeah, Germany. Like I live now in between Germany and Dublin, and um, I've assimilated into the culture here, and I like it here a lot.
Mm,
Um, and that's something that I couldn't have imagined, like that I would be living in Germany. You know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, because they're like you often hear about, like, I don't know, just when people talk, they don't often talk about like Denmark and all these spots. So it's cool that you got to visit so many different places. Um, I suppose I don't want to keep you like too much longer. Just
I'm fine for time anyway, man. Don't worry. Yeah.
um, I suppose one thing that I
Got
normally.
nothing to do, dude. This is like the highlight of my week. Do you realize how much of this is just going on all the time? Just me, just rocking back and forth, just like, what's next?
YouTube.
Oh, a podcast next Thursday. Oh yeah, I'm in. Brilliant.
Oh, that's music to my ears. It was like sometimes when you're doing these, you're kind of like, oh, is he like ready to go or whatever. No, that's fantastic. I suppose what have you been filling your time with over the lockdown? Just kind of practice, I presume music,
Yeah.
bit of everything.
Yeah, I did a bit of music, not as much as I would have liked. I gave myself some goals and was like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna write an album, but nah, I didn't get there, man. I didn't get there. I'm not gonna beat myself up about it, because what I did do has helped me dramatically in terms of my general helping myself to feel better about myself. So like I did make some music. I made music for friends, with friends, produced things and things like that.
Mm,
Wrote a few things for myself. But then on top of that, what I finally got to really do was develop and maintain a good practice of mental health
mm,
and like stuff related things that are good for me to be the best version of me,
mm,
like yoga,
mm.
meditating, just exercising, eating well. Yeah, to be honest, I kind of thrived in this madness. Like it was like, okay, I've always wanted to be able to commit to doing the same thing every day, like have a bit of routine. Because
Mm.
my job doesn't have any routine.
Yeah,
It's
that's what
completely
I was
different
gonna
all
say.
the time. I've never really worked in a 9 to 5 job. I've been doing this since I was a teenager. So it's like, it was a joy to finally go, I'm waking up every day at a reasonable time and I'm going to have a cold shower because that's what I like to do. If I'm feeling like I'm going to have a really good day today, I'm just going to go, doesn't matter how I feel, I'm going to have a cold shower. That's going to start the day nicely. Then I'd like do my bit of yoga. I'd have my overnight oats,
Mm,
my porridge, nice mindful experience making those the night before, like
yeah,
just things that I just wouldn't have ever done. I'd say I do them, or the odd time I might have done them, and every time I did them, I felt good. But to get to do that consistently
for
for
sure.
weeks and
And
weeks
that's
and
how it pays
weeks,
off.
that
Yeah.
just builds self confidence, self worth, self esteem. As opposed to the opposites of that. You
Yeah.
know, like which is what I had been feeling sometimes, like depressed, self hatred, self loathing, just you know fucking whipping myself for not doing things right. But no, it was a really good time for me to develop some self compassion.
Mm.
Have some distance from Hudson-Taylor because I was so identified with that Hudson-Taylor. Like I'm Harry, I'm Hudson-Taylor. It's my
Yeah.
second name and it's my band. And guess what? That's who I am and that's all I am and that's all I ever will be. But actually, no, actually not. I'm also just a normal man. I'm
Yeah.
also a normal lad. Shane. I'm not just this guy in a band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's another thing. Like I love living in Germany because it's not like when I'm in Dublin, it's not like I'm not a crazy famous person, but like nobody knows who I am here. It's
Mm,
brilliant.
mm.
Sometimes when I'm in Dublin, I get this little ego boost because someone goes, "Oh, you're your man from Hudson-Taylor," and like I just don't. It's nice, but it's also like it's nice to be here and nobody knows who I am, and I'm
Yeah,
just like brilliant. This is class. Just get to learn how to love myself. You know.
for sure. No, because like that, like I kind of had sort of put down that kind of thing of like I suppose creatively during lockdown because like we went through some of the same stuff as well. Um, like you're kind of adapting to it, but I was kind of a little bit relieved, like yourself, when you had all of this time just to yourself, like that you could like you're saying, kind of schedule things a little bit better because prior to that, you're like in college, part-time job, trying to do this, meeting up with people, and it does definitely give you a good time to like reflect on everything and kind of see like where your priorities really lie, especially as like
Exactly.
the months went on and on and on. Almost it's like you got around to that book you didn't get to read, and
Mm.
everything like that, 100%. I suppose just touching on do you mind me asking what type of meditation you do? Because a good friend of mine has been trying to get me to do it, but I haven't. I was thinking about this to myself last night. Actually, I was like, why don't I just start? I've put up this barrier in my mind where I listen to Russell Brand kind of talk on and on and on about it, but I never actually just take that leap to do it. So maybe I'll do it later. Because
I love Russell Brand. Yeah, he's great. He actually has a meditation on. There's this app called Insight Timer.
okay,
He has one. He's got that 11-minute one. It's really simple. That could be a good way for you to start. But
fantastic.
like I do, I mean, I do loads of different ones. Like for example, I've practiced mindfulness meditation a lot, which is just essentially like focusing on things in the present moment. So like your breath. It's Buddhist meditation. It's like you focus on your breath is the most common thing, but you could even just do it by how you eat. You mindfully eat, like you take time very carefully observing the food you're eating, thinking about all the ingredients, where they come from, and in
Mm,
that process alone, you start to build, the saliva in your mouth starts to work and it's like ready to receive it. You still don't eat it, you smell it, you get really involved in it, and then you have this whole kind of mindful experience where you're fully present with the thing that you're doing. So I try to do that as much as possible. Even walking,
Yeah.
left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. How does it feel? Where's the tension in my body? And my posture's been shit for this whole fucking interview. Damn it. You know what I mean? I wasn't aware of my posture until just now because we're talking about mindfulness, right? So that's one thing that I do. Another thing that I do is I'm using that app called Insight Timer, and there's a guy on there.
Site, INSIGHT.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a guy on there called David G. Sorry, looks like this. He looks like Santa Claus. Anyway, he does this. If you sign up for a membership thing, he does it 40 days of transformation, and I'm on day 16 right now on that. But like, I do different forms of ones. I do mantra meditation as well. So it's like, that's where you just, you have a mantra. It could be anything, and you just say it out loud initially, and then you just eventually just start saying it in your head. With every breath, you're just saying it, and all it does is it means your mind will still wander. You still think about little thoughts just come through, and you start to be aware that you are not the thoughts, that you're the kind of observing presence behind it. That you are not Shane. It sounds real fucking, I don't know. My experience of it is
I 100% get you 100%.
My experience of it is anyway that it just removes a lot of the bullshit. I become a bit more serene.
Yeah.
My general energy is a lot calmer when I'm doing any kind of meditative stuff. So that's super useful for me because just have an anxious disposition, quite jittery or whatever. Like
a lot of Irish people probably are to some extent, maybe, I think.
Yeah, it's probably just a historical trauma thing, just held over for generations about, whatever it is, chip on your shoulder, whoever knows, everything that can happen in your life that'll affect you. But when you start doing meditation, or at least for me, when I started doing meditation, very slowly but surely, it's made a huge difference in my life. That's not to say I didn't struggle, because a few times it brought up a lot of weird shit for me. It made me feel really crazy,
But sometimes you kind of, you had to feel that maybe, or whatever it might be.
Sure. I think it's important to do it initially with guidance, not to try, because trying to do it on your own can be frustrating, and I think you should do it on your own as well, just to see. But I think guidance is really helpful because it's like it trains you how to meditate. There's loads of different ways to do it, and just being completely open to all the different ways: transcendental meditation, mindfulness meditation, mantra meditation, walking meditation, eating meditation. You can do everything as a meditation. All it is just fully pulling you into the present moment, stopping you thinking about the past and projecting into what the future is. That's my idea of what it is anyway.
For sure.
Yeah, like I said, what it does for me gives me peace of mind that I didn't ever have before I started doing it. So
yeah, no, I think it's massive. I always like, have you ever come across that dude Duncan Trussell on Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
He was talking one time about it was something about this idea of like, he's like, when like you're stuck in traffic or something and someone's like, oh, like what, I need to get there, and like they're getting like all really mad about it and stuff, but it's like there's traffic every day. So why have you got it in your head that like today was going to be any different, you know what I mean, or whatever it is? And it's kind of like, I think if like kind of gives you that perspective of kind of like, there's no point in giving all your energy over to that all the time. Sometimes you have to feel these things, but you
just gotta let it pass through. The same thing with the car, like the car analogy, like the traffic thing. If you're driving down a road, 95% of the time, your consciousness is able to just take everything in and then let it go. It's like that's how you really want to be, But what happens is you're driving along and you see someone and they brake really fast, and you're like, fucking faster. And then for the next 20 minutes, you're going, I can't believe that, man. I can't believe it. Like,
exactly, yeah.
And then you tell someone later on, and you're like, I was in the car, and you wouldn't believe this guy. He braked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For God's sake, And it's like, how much energy are you using to feel negatively about the fact that this person braked? You have no idea what's going on with that person. They might have just got a fucking fright, or they got a phone call, or whatever the fuck. Who knows? Anything could be happening. Maybe they were just being an idiot. It doesn't even matter. The fact is, the fact that you got so, you know, stuck thinking about that and wasting your time and energy and projecting it on other people.
Mm.
Hey man, how are you? Good to see you. Oh man, I had a fucking horrible day. This guy braked in front of me, like, Jesus, like, you know, it's like
Yeah.
you're bringing everyone else's energy down as well. Like, it's like,
Sure.
just let it go, man. Just breathe, use your breath, fucking connect. Oh, it's okay. I'm in a car. I'm just driving, you know, that's it.
Exactly. That's literally what, like, when you started saying that, I was like, we all have that person where it's like all the time they have like a story like that, like literally, like, yeah. um I suppose no, I'm loving this part of the chat, but I did want to circle back a little bit to obviously, as you can imagine, a lot of like kind of up and coming artists and stuff kind of reach out on the show and stuff. So would you have maybe like any observations about maybe like common mistakes that kind of up and comers are making, or like not are making, but that you see from time to time, or anything like that, or maybe that you've had yourselves starting out?
Yeah, I mean, I feel first of all, it's not my place to judge anybody or what they're doing, and it's everyone's on their own journey. Uh, whereby, you know, I mean, that's good for me to say that, because in the past I would have, like I was saying at the start of this conversation, I was just used to be much more obsessively comparing myself to others all the time.
Mm.
And having a sort of kind of classic Irish begrudgery of people and be like, oh, fuck them, they're fucking doing so well, damn them. Never actually giving them the blessing of saying, fair play. Or I would say that in the past, I would say it, but I actually meant, fair play, yeah, well done, fuck you,
Exactly.
fuck you. No, I would say, like, it's weird. It's a completely different landscape from when I was starting out. The
Mm.
internet has exploded. It's a completely different thing. It's a huge beast. It was a beast at the time, but it was a different sort of beast. Now it's super oversaturated. There's so much competition for
Playlists.
attention.
Yeah.
Everybody's attention is in. You're fighting for that, so you're constantly trying to make the next meme. Like, even though you're in a band and you need to make a fucking meme because that's the only way that people are gonna kind of see who you are or whatever. So, you know, it's a hard one to say. All I would say is, like, try and foster your own, like, it sounds real cheesy, but it's like, you got to just find your own thing, your unique thing,
Mm.
and just go with it and love yourself for it, and
Yeah.
and do and try and fail. Like, you need to fail. You can't learn anything without just trying, you know.
Yeah.
I think, like, a huge thing that's held me back loads of times over the years is just like trying to be perfect, you know. And I think it holds back a lot of artists. They don't release anything, they don't do anything because they just want it to be absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
There is something to be said for that. Like, you want to have things lined up, you know.
Exactly. You want to have quality. Yeah.
You want to have a plan. Sure, you want to have a plan. You can plan your things and all that stuff. But if it's, your planning is completely getting in the way with your love for what you're doing,
Mm.
and you're thinking about just planning it all the time, and you're never actually enjoying it, then it's not going to be successful. There's a few people that get successful very luckily without loving it.
Mm.
You know, they just fall into it, and it's luck. It's pure luck. But I think the hard work is loving all of it, the discomfort, being in the discomfort of knowing that you might not succeed,
Mm.
and just going, yeah, cool. Well, I'm just doing this because I love it.
Mm.
You know, I think that's becoming more true and apparent, and people are seeing that more now than ever. Like, I think during the height of X Factor times, people were like, yeah, I want to be famous. I want to be fucking famous.
Yeah.
You know, we're sold as a culture. Still, we're sold as a culture that fame is the answer to, like, a lot of your problems, you know. Fame and money, that's the answer, you know. You mentioned Russell Brand. He's a perfect example, perfect role model, especially for men, but he can be for women too. But just in terms of, like, this is not the answer. Like, the thing you think is the answer is not the answer.
Mm.
That's still not going to stop people from fucking trying it out, because they
Yeah.
need to see it for themselves. I mean, I'm not fucking balling. I'm not rolling in cash. I've had a reasonable degree of success. If you look at me externally, if you look at the numbers of Hudson-Taylor, things like that, you go, oh, those guys are doing class. I'm not making loads of money. I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? I'm not like, I've had some privileged stuff. I have some great stuff going for me. I'm a white male. Jesus Christ. Why cannot complain? Like, things are fine overall. But what I would say is, like, I just enjoyed it the whole time, you know, like, not the whole time, but 90% of the time I was like, this is really, like, I really love this. I love doing this. And that's the kind of energy that people want.
Yeah.
They come back for. They come to see you in a show because they see that you're enjoying it or that you feel it. You don't
Mm.
necessarily have to be on stage like
Yeah.
smiley, smiley, you know what I mean? But like that you're in it and you really are in it, whatever it is, performance, art performing, anything that it is you, it's an expression of you. And ultimately, you know, every one of us has something to say. We all have a message and we all have a gift to give the world, you
Mm.
know? Um, you know, it's all just the same. It's just a manifestation of something greater that none of us actually understand. I don't know any of this conversation, Shane. I don't know where any of this stuff's coming from. All the stuff
Yeah, right. Yeah.
that I'm
Yeah.
saying to you right now, like I'm enjoying this conversation because I haven't spoken to somebody in these terms for a while. I haven't done an interview for a long time. I'm a different person since the last time I did an interview. It's great. It's really fun.
I'm so like I'm so happy with how this has gone and everything so far because it was funny because when I was looking at a lot of the old interviews, there was a lot of them from like years ago and stuff, and then you can nearly like see your progress as you went. There was like these like Viva ones from like literally like 2012 or 2013 and stuff, and like all the way through, and then to like I think there is a bit of a gap recently because probably obviously because of the
Mm-hmm.
making the album and then the COVID and everything, but yeah, it's like a totally different side that I'm so glad I'm sort of getting out of this, you know. So no, I really appreciate it. And I know what you're saying about sort of like the creative process, and going back to what you were saying about sort of like the perfectionism and stuff. I was watching, have you ever seen the film Ex Machina? I was watching it
Yeah,
recently.
yeah.
Like fantastic. And then there's like that quote in it, I'm gonna butcher its pieces, but like where he's like you know, if Pollock had to describe why he was making every stroke in a painting, there would be no painting. You know what I mean? You just got to kind of feel
Feel
it
it.
out and intuit it. Yeah, almost. Um, I don't know where where we're going from here, but yeah, it's been fantastic to chat to you.
Yeah, very much so. Enjoyed it.
Um,
Um,
what I was
cool.
going to ask is, do you have just maybe because I'm just genuinely curious, do you have maybe any like book recommendations or anything, particularly if about mindfulness or meditation or anything like that?
I've been on a non-fiction buzz for a
Yeah,
while.
that, I love reading.
I need to get back into the fiction world a little bit. I think I've been gone a bit crazy going into like self-help books and things like that.
They
Uh,
can somewhat become a little bit, you know, toxic in the sense that like when all your because I found anyway, it's like all you consume is like Rogan and Russell Brand and like Duncan Trussell, and it's a lot of like ideas you're trying to keep in your head and like Peterson
yes,
and like all this stuff, you know.
yes, and trying to mix it up as well. Making sure I listen to as much of all
Yes.
people, you know, genders, ethnic diversities and backgrounds, and so I can build a picture of like what the hell is this human experience thing, because I have a pretty privileged experience just being a white man in the Western world. So I try to just do as much as I can, like anti-racism work if I can. How to Be an Anti-Racist is a book that I've been reading recently
Mm,
that I really enjoy,
mm,
to unpack my inherent racism that is what I've been bred into the system I've been born into. Like I'm reading books about codependency, unlatching myself from, you know, bonds I have, addictive cycles, things like that. The Power of Now was a book that I read like 3 years ago and it changed my life. Honestly, that was like a huge one. You know, again, I'm just listing off loads of these like
yeah, no, I love
spiritual
it.
books, but like these are books that they change your life. You know, if you're in the right place to read these things, it's just like, oh God, yeah, okay, cool. I'm not my
Yeah,
thoughts. I'm not my things, whatever.
yeah,
So like, yeah, I've been reading loads of those kind of books, self-help books for way too long. Probably I need
yeah,
to put the brake on those for a bit and start picking up some fiction and enjoying art, because
yes,
essentially, you know, fiction is a bit more of an art form than just like these are the facts.
yes,
This is scientifically proven,
yeah,
and if you know, there's beauty in understanding it all. And I needed to read a lot of that stuff, but I'm glad you asked me about book recommendations,
mm,
because it means that I now have to go and look at reading something that is not
yeah,
about mental health or self-help or addiction or,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, whatever. I'm going to go and read some nice fiction. So if
yeah.
you have any recommendations,
Yeah.
please throw them my way.
I'm trying to think because it's funny that you said that because I'm similar to yourself where I read primarily nonfiction for ages, and a close mate of mine in work, he's studying literature in college, like, and so he reads like Yeats and Joyce and like he's fiction pretty much only, and it's so interesting that like will talk about some of the same ideas, but then he does have like this like different perspective because he's not reading it like verbatim off a page. It's more like expressed in these characters, and he'll like tell me like, oh yeah, and this unfolded that way in this book and stuff. The only one I can think of, I'm sure you've probably heard about it before. I read 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by that dude.
Yuval Noah
Yeah,
Harari.
he's
Yes,
sick though.
that's a good book. I love that whole series, the Sapiens and Homo Deus and
Yeah,
everything. That's a really good. It's a great book. Yeah.
yeah, because it's just,
Again, it's still it's not fiction. It's like it's on the
I
same.
know that's what I was like. Yeah, it's not
You know, I want to read more fiction, so I need some suggestions. I know people that have kept telling me I should read this and that, the other, and I have more time, so I should do it.
for sure.
But yeah, books are great. I didn't appreciate books when I was a teenager. I wasn't someone who read books at all, and I've had time in the last few years to actually read books. It's good. It's a good thing to do. I read a really good one actually called The Prophet by Khalil something. He's got it. Hang on a second. I'll look it up here. The Prophet.
Because I suppose even for me as well, like once I discovered podcasts, there was a period where I didn't read at all for like a couple of years. But then when you rediscover a book and just how like detail it goes into, and then there's a different experience in terms of reading it off a page that you actually kind of can recall it that bit better and stuff. I found anyway.
It's another sort of spiritual book, but it's called The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. I wrote it into the chat there as well. That's a really good book, but again, it's just a little fictional story, but it's kind of a allegorical spiritual lessons.
I know,
this kind of thing, which is cool. Do you know what I got really into? Because you said podcasts. I listen to loads of podcasts, and then I realized that I'm a auditory learner, like that. I take information in better which kind of makes sense to my musicality as well. Like I take information in better by my ears than I do by my eyes. So like listening to things, I listen to audiobooks. Like I listen to books. Over the last few years, I've been listening to books as opposed to reading them. I mean, I have read a few, but do you know what one that I read that was like last year or early, 6 months ago? The Wall by John Lancaster. That's brilliant. It's like a dystopian future thing.
Right.
The Wall, really, really good. I'll send you some other suggestions.
Man. Yeah, I'm loving this because
this will bore the listeners. They probably edit all this shit out, but there's like a couple of good ones that I found along the way.
No, genuinely, Harry, like this has been absolutely fantastic. I literally couldn't have thought it would have went better. Is there anything like aside from I suppose the album? I kind of forget almost we're doing like a proper interview that you're like promoting or that you want people to go check out aside from these books and everything like that.
I mean, our younger sister, who makes music under Hallie, HALLI, she's fantastic. She's going to come out with new music hopefully soon. She's really good. She's also talented, just general creative person, and she directed our most recent like lyric video thing.
Amazing. I was going to come honestly because I'm a graphic designer, so like I loved it. Yeah,
you did. Yeah, nice one. That was totally her concept. She's just like, here, this is what I want you to do. Get out your phone and film yourself doing all these different things. Can you do this weird angle? Can you put this phone here? Can you do that? Direct it all over WhatsApp, and
honestly,
you literally threw together send her all the videos over WhatsApp, so they all just have like a kind of grainy quality or whatever. And really happy with it. It was really cool. It was a lovely experience, and she's super talented. And when I just can't wait for people to get to hear more of her music. She's got one song out there called "Fuck Fear," which is a brilliant song. But there's loads of songs on the way for her. And in terms of Hudson-Taylor, we've been in a sort of a forced hiatus like most bands.
Yeah,
there's music. It's being written, it's being finished and finalized. It'll be next year before we release anything, realistically. We might have something, sort of a behind the scenes, kind of an extended edition or extra version of the album or an extra song or something like that between now and next year. But sometime next year, I'm not sure. It's just the same with everyone, just no idea really.
Exactly, yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
That's cool. Like, it was a great chat to you.